Okay, as long as it's not somebody's pacemaker or something going on. Okay. All right, join me in a word of prayer. Father, thank you for this day. We thank you for the city of Clewiston. And Lord, all that you're doing here. And we just ask your wisdom and guidance on every decision, Father, that we make tonight. We just thank you that for your leading and guiding. We thank you for the safety of our citizens and for protecting our police and fire and first responders. And we give you the honor and glory. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, if you do the roll call.
Commissioner Edmonds.
Here.
Commissioner Gardner.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here. Vice
Mayor Hyslop.
Here.
Mayor Pittman.
Here.
City Manager Williams.
Here.
City Attorney Brandenburg.
Here.
Have a quorum, sir.
All right, any additions, deletions to the agenda?
No changes, Mayor.
Yes, I need to add those three.
Well, what you added, yeah.
To the
no.
consent, yeah.
Okay, we have 3 event applications. That will be 10A, 10B, 10C. The fair will be A, the Henry Glades Health Fair B, and the Sugar Festival C. We'll put them under the consent agenda. Okay, with no other changes. We'll have comments from the public. I understand we have several comments tonight. If you're commenting on anything other than the animal services, you can come up first. Okay, seeing none. How many comment cards do we have? And, okay, normally we give 3 minutes for comments. We'll start out. If anyone is going to say the same thing, maybe you could kind of combine your 3 minutes. But whoever would like to approach, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Janet Taylor, and my address is 1018 Louisiana Avenue, right here in Clewiston. And I'm here tonight because I'm an avid animal lover. My great-grands have 10 dogs and 1 cat from our animal shelter. And I'm here tonight because I just heard that Chief Lewis and the animal shelter was under attack. And if you hear from my voice, I've been in for 2 weeks and not able to speak, but I had to come because I want to give some facts. And as I look around the room, I don't see many people here from Clewiston. So if you were not here in the last 4 years living in Clewiston and being a part of us, you can't relate to what our previous shelter was. We used to euthanize the animals, but since the chief has been here, that has changed. Not only has that changed, he's remodeled and upgraded the shelter to the facility that is out there now that this community can really be proud of. And I always say a picture is better than 1,000 words. So to show the commitment that the chief and that department have, when I'm finished talking, I do have a little video for you all to see. The chief answers his cell phone after hours. Where do you go that a police chief is going to answer his cell phone for you after hours? Not only do he answer his phone, he comes out personally, and that's what you're going to see on the video, because that video was taken in Harlem after work hours about a dog that was really terrorizing our community and was very difficult to catch because he was able to jump high fences and all. So when you see in the video, you'll see he came out. He didn't come out dressed in thing. He was in his uniform, and the dog was scared of the uniform. And in the video, you'll see some of that. But this, I want to say to this commission, is the quality of leader that we want at our shelter and that we want here in our community. As a community, like I said, I don't see many Clewiston people here, But as a community, we need to stand up for our community and not let outsiders come in and influence our decisions about our facilities in our community. So I thank you all for hearing me out, commissioners, and I want to just show you a brief video.
Wasn't sure.
Now that's the chief, after hours.
Y'all, why my mama been, what you call that thing? Where you staking out, following this brown dog for hours and making animal control come get this dog. She said she's just sick and tired.
That's the chief. And that's the dog.
Mama, get back! Mama, get back! Mama did here, we got a runner, y'all.
And when he started running you all, he was able to jeep and those things. But the chief was there with us after hours. This was not an 8 to 5 thing. So I think you all should think much about what kind of person you have manning that shelter down there. I have to run to Moorhaven to the commission meeting, but please, if you need me for anything, let me know. I have more videos of the chief.
Thanks, Janet.
Appreciate it, Ms. Taylor.
Kelly Norton?
Would you mind if I came after
Okay.
Janet? Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Christine Peterson. I live at 213 South San Gabriel. And I just want to remind the commission that not that long ago, animal control was in a building when the lift station overflowed. The animal control officers were up past the ankles in terrible, terrible fluids. Wendell Johnson changed that. He got a grant money, he built that new animal control facility, and Don Gutschall was a very good steward of that animal control facility for a number of years. We established relationships with rescues. That was when they created the spay and neutering program. And I feel he was very vigilant in how his stewardship of animal control. Animal control, not rescue, not clinic, animal control. When Don Gutschall retired, we had someone who told me as a city commissioner, they didn't want anything to do with animal control. And that's when the volunteer business got out of control, in my estimation. I am deeply sorrowful that people feel they have to get behind a keyboard and espouse their verbal vomit about what is going on at the animal control facility. Chief Lewis came into a horrible mess. Not only brought that facility back to what it was when Chief Gutschall left, brought it up an extra notch, did like Emeril Lagasse, and bam, there we went. On their own time, and his officers endorsed what he was doing and would show up on their time off to help. He is a good steward of the finances. He was a good steward of his outlook to that building, and not just because he's the chief and a leader. He's also someone who cares about animals. Now, I've read some of this stuff online that's going on, and I just would like to say, those of you who don't live in Clewiston, if you break the fence line to come about my dogs, me and Miss Glock will meet you in the yard because that will not happen. We need to make sure that people understand we do not have a clinic. We do not have a rescue. If you would like to do that, perhaps the people who are not happy would like to pool their monies and find a piece of property and establish one. To me, I think we're at a spot where either animal control takes care of 4 square miles for the city of Clewiston, and we relinquish the county back to the county. Because I think if you look historically, the number of dogs that come, 60 to 70%, depending on what year it is, are from out of the county. Now, there was a time where we used to put down 900 pounds a month, and that could, to 1,200 pounds a month, and that caused a lot of grief for heartache for Don Gutschall, who was an animal lover, Wendell Johnson, for myself, and we changed those things. But that was changed to an animal control with the relationships with the rescues. Tom Lewis was able to get his department behind him and reestablish those. We need to celebrate that, we need to recognize that, and we need to encourage and support that in any way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes.
If you plan on speaking, if you could kind of get on deck, that would help us with a little bit of time.
Maybe sit up front. Sit up here if you could. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Krista Pettigrew, and my address is 16070 80th Street North. I am from Loxahatchee, so no, I am not a member of Hendry County, but I am the president of With Love for the Animals Rescue for the past 10 plus years, and I have extensive experience in rescuing out of Clewiston as well as many other high-kill areas. I've seen Clewiston from 10 plus years ago, and I've seen it today. And while I do see improvement that is much appreciated, not only by the animals, but the people who are helping them, there are some things that still need to be addressed. And tonight, I am not only going to explain, but also show you why the acting leadership in ACO, Will Jones, needs to be terminated. The purpose of an animal shelter is to provide care and temporary housing for animals that have been abandoned, badly treated, lost, homeless, or surrendered. While Clewiston Animal Services claims to provide these advocacy services by calling themselves an animal shelter, I cannot confirm that it is not. I cannot confirm that what's happening behind those walls is what an animal shelter is. A lack of leadership, let alone care and time under Officer Will Jones, leads me to believe that the exact opposite is happening at Clewiston Animal Services. I'm showing you, I'm here on behalf of Emily today, who entered the shelter July 1st of 2023 and exited the shelter December 18th of 2023. She went to the vet's office one day after she was pulled from the animal shelter, and she weighed 26.4 pounds. Exactly 31 days later, she then weighed 42.2 pounds. The vets have noted, which I would be happy to show you, that the dog was starved. She was positive for heartworm and giardia. Giardia is a very simple antibiotic fix, and I understand that they may not be a clinic, but it is also the duty of these people to make sure that the animals are being taken care of with something as simple as getting them to the vet or having a vet come out for these specific things. Now, someone said about pooling our money. I spend quite a bit of my own money on rescues, especially from Clewiston, and I'd be happy to spend more, but we need to see that change is going to be made. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I ask you what your rescue? that
With
you-
Love for the Animals.
Love for the animals.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I am Michelle Miner. I am here to talk about the kennel's condition and the failure keeping.
Ma'am, can you state where you're?
Oh, I'm from Fort Myers, actually.
Thank you.
I actually come here to rescue a lot of the dogs from Clewiston that your community has asked us to come help because they've been left out there so long.
I'm sorry, the community where?
Montura is the main area where they're literally everybody's calling us. Please help us rescue these dogs. Pregnant dogs, all of them have heartworm. They have roundworm. There's a lot of issues, and they've been out there for years.
I'd be happy to personally speak on that with her if you'd like to hear more.
I'm going to talk to you about the kennel conditions, the failure of keeping animals in proper conditions. Does anyone think that these kennels are acceptable conditions? There's fecal matter, diarrhea with blood in it, and urine in the water bowls. These pictures were taken at 10:30 a.m., so the faculty was open to the public. Animals of this community deserve better. Taxpayers deserve their hard-earned money to go to their local animal control who follow the Florida Animal Code of Ethics, not a faculty who keeps animals in horrific conditions. It's been a few years since the current ACO has been there, and nothing's changed. Have any of you dropped by the facility unannounced? There's an animal crisis going on, and intakes are up, but there's no circumstances or justifications for any animal to live this way. Animal control officers do their jobs in other counties. If they come across a private citizen who keep their animals in these conditions, the animal is confiscated and the owner is cited. It's unacceptable that a government employee who takes an oath to keep animals safe would house them this way. This causes distress, infection, illness, and it's inhumane. With no vet on hand, no protocol in place for medical treatment, they are forced to suffer until a rescue can arrive, if they even call a rescue. If no rescue is available or they are not called quick enough, the animal suffers and dies. Florida Statute 828 protects animals against this treatment that law enforcement and ACOs are expected to enforce. I've worked in rescue for years, and this is by far the worst faculty I've seen. This is not acceptable for any faculty. It's shame and cruel against Florida Statutes 828. Please do your duty. Terminate the person or persons who are not upholding their duties, and please kindly put someone that will, because that's what all your people want.
I have a question. Which rescue are you affiliated with?
I am Chase and Tail. We're Chase and Tail. We actually go out there and
okay.
take animals off the street. Chase and Tail.
Oh,
We
okay.
take animals off the street. We connect them with rescues to help them. We trap them.
We're affiliated with many different rescues.
Yeah. And we try to.
We work in Montura area where it's the most.
Okay. Thank you.
If I may, the last 13 dogs that Chase and Tail has pulled out of there have personally gone to my rescue and my home, and I have been the one who take them to the vet and get all of their needs taken care of. Not only are these dogs extremely feral, and these untrained ladies were able to capture them.
Untrained.
Well, I'm sorry, not professionally trained county members.
Oh.
Okay, ma'am, I'm gonna have to let the next person
Yeah,
come.
well,
I'm just curious, what years were the pictures from?
Those are 2024.
Okay.
And they're at 10:30 a.m.
they're blown up so
They're
big.
blown up,
So
and
they
they were
do
taken by a
become
rescue at
blurry.
10:30 in the morning.
But we
By
can-
a rescue
we're
that
happy
pulls
to
from Lee
verify
County.
any
Where
pictures.
was the dogs you pulled?
They're at my home.
No, where did you pull them from?
Montura.
Okay, those dogs aren't at our clinic, so you pull them from Montura where our guys have to go sometime, but
But they don't.
But they
That's why
live
we
in the
had to
woods for
go there.
years.
that's fine. I
We've-
just
we've
wanted to
pro-
know where
we've-
you're getting these
We
dogs.
trapped a dog that actually Will Jones trapped overnight, left the trap, went back in the morning, and the dog had eaten out. We had to re-trap the dog. Everyone on the street said he was aggressive. It was a very large pit bull down on Haciendo, and it went to a rescue. It wasn't her rescue, it's another rescue I'm affiliated with, and the dog was the nicest dog in the world. So the dog was just out there roaming, and so we trapped him, and he was perfect. My name is Miranda Wyatt, and my subject matter is sexual harassment and impairment on the job. I'm starting by reading a clip from an article from the Clewiston Code of Ordinances regarding the duties of powers.
Miranda, I'm sorry, where were you from? I didn't know.
I'm from Fort Myers, but I do a lot of work out here for many years.
But you reside in
I've
Fort
actually
Myers.
spoken here before, and but yeah, I live right on the border of Hendry and Lee. Power duties for the city manager: to appoint, supervise, discipline, demote, suspend, or remove any city employee when deemed necessary for the good of the city, subject to city ordinances, resolutions, and city personnel policies. I'd like to show you a conversation that was sent to different rescuers by a rescue who used to pull from CAS. Staff reached out to the rescue for help with a dog via messenger, and the conversation took a turn that made the rescue uncomfortable to the point that they ceased pulling from CAS. That conversation, no, where's mine? No, the other one. A rescue was reached out to by Will Jones and asked to pull a dog. She replied back, and he said, okay, just asking, hope you had a good time. She said, send me pictures of the dog, just in case, but unfortunately, I got in a rough spot with these guys. She was talking about another dog. He sends a photo of himself, okay? So she tries then to kindly go off the subject and ask him, please send photos of the dog, and he sends another photo of himself. It has nothing, does not pertain to rescue. She was so upset that this happened. She literally wrote in her will every time we went, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. Debated going back. Then this conversation was the nail in the coffin. Couldn't handle his drunk texts and calls. This is straight from the rescue that pulled many dogs. The rescue was clearly uncomfortable, but stayed professional and stayed on top, and again was requested photos of the dog and was still met with unprofessional response. Sexual harassment is illegal in Florida workplaces and is prohibited by state law and federal. It's defined as unwelcome conduct based on sex that creates a hostile work environment. Two examples are unwanted sexual advances and sexual comments, jokes, or slurs, which were clearly in that conversation. The only ones that suffer are the dogs because the rescue stopped pulling from the facility. This alone should have consequences of termination. I'm sure all government employees sign a sexual harassment form when they are hired. Number two, my failure is failure to conduct duties. It's been reported of an incident this weekend of a citizen who'd been trying to reach CAS for a year to help with an issue of aggressive dogs who continue to come on his property and kill livestock. It was reported around January 23rd, 2 ACOs arrived at the property after the dogs killed more livestock. It's reported that one officer was unable to stand, walk, or talk because they were intoxicated. They stated they could not get the dogs that night and would be back in the morning. The citizen stated if they didn't contain the dog that night, that his last pig was going to be killed. The following morning, the pig was dead. ACOs came 48 hours later. Upon arrival, one ACO, Will Jones, one ACO stood by while the other ACO, Jones, stated they couldn't contain the dogs with the control pole because he's scared. The citizen asked, then how the hell do you work this thing? The ACO showed how to work the control pole, and the citizen, who is untrained and unqualified, went into the corral where the dogs were and contained 5 of the 7 dogs. He then got them into the ACO vehicle. It is incomprehensible that an ACO allegedly arrived to a citizen's property intoxicated, but then wouldn't even do their duty, forcing the citizen to do so. This is a very big liability for the city and the county. There was also another incident that is reported. The same ACO totaled a
I'm gonna have
city.
to cut you off, ma'am.
It's just really quick. It's just a
Yeah,
few
but
more words.
I happen to know Will, and I guarantee you the picture of him flexing, he was not working at our facility.
That
in
he sure
picture.
did. This was for
There's
sure.
no
Actually,
way. I've
absolutely.
known Will for
100%. I
When-
mean, the
when-
rescue.
when
You can
was that
contact.
shot?
You can contact the rescue.
When's this text?
I'm sorry.
When was that text?
what time was
This
it?
was February of 24.
What time?
I don't have the time. The time of day? February of 24. It was Will has been here since 22. He used to be an officer in Lee County, so I know him back then. But
Yeah, well,
over there,
that
he
picture
had
of him flexing isn't while he's been working here. I promise you that.
no. But it was an old photo. But
I know
he's
Will personally. and
correct.
he-
But he sent an old photo in the combo. He sent the old photo.
Okay. We're gonna
You
have
can
to
talk to the rescue. They stopped pulling because of this.
And what was the
We're
rescue's
gonna
name?
have to.
Move
on to the
I can
next
get that for
speaker.
you. Kathy Irie, she can tell you because she's extremely familiar with the situation.
Okay.
Because they literally stopped pulling.
So you
and-
didn't receive those directly, you got them via somebody else? who
from
did.
the rescue.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, she said the rescue
But you
sent it
don't
to
know the rescue's
multiple
name?
people. I'm sorry?
You don't know the rescue's name?
They told, gosh, no. There's so many rescues that I work
Okay.
with, I can't remember.
All right, thank you.
But
One
that,
other quick question before the next person comes up. You guys trap dogs in Montura mostly?
yeah, dogs that have been living in the woods for 9 and 8 years.
And
And
so
so
my question is, what do you do after you trap them?
we put them in a rescue. We give them to a rescue. We microchip scan them. But most of them are never have a chip. They're all heartworm positive, and they go to a rescue
Okay.
that treats them.
And are the rescues inspected and documented? And
They're all 501s, 501c3s, of course. Yes, 100%.
That's a nonprofit, though. I don't think that answers a question, or if they have inspections by the state or anything like
We're
that,
regulated by our counties.
by your county. Okay.
Okay, next person. Just raise your hand if you're planning on speaking, so. Okay, 1, 2, 3 more. Okay, 4. All right, whoever's on deck, be ready.
Hello. My name is Kelly Norton, and I am a Hendry County property owner about to build in Hendry County. Currently, I live in North Fort Myers. On November 19th, I'm here today to speak about neglect and negligence violations of the Florida statutes. In the real world, I'm a nurse practitioner, and just like I would say that Florence Nightingale, back in her time, was looked about like this is like sliced bread, we've come a long way in nursing, and we're not saying anything bad about, well, what's happening, but there's a lot of room for improvement here. On December 19th, 2024, 3 puppies were 4 to 5 weeks old, found in a box and brought to Clewiston Animal Services. On December 3rd, a Facebook post was made showing one of the puppies up for adoption, which is circled in the bottom right in red by Clewiston Animal Services. On December 30th, the rescue was on their way to take all 3 puppies. On their way to Clewiston, the rescue was notified that one of the puppies had died. This is what the rescue posted on their Facebook page. Well, today was mentally and physically exhausting. Amber's Animal Outreach went to rescue 3 puppies that were found in a box on the side of the road in Clewiston. By the time we arrived, one puppy had already died. As we rushed out to have the other 2 puppies evaluated, their health was declining quickly. They were filled with fleas, extremely underweight, unable to stand, weak, severely anemic, and they had low body temperatures. They were rushed to the ER, where staff quickly went into action to give them blood transfusions, medications for worms and parasites. Blood tests were taken, and these now 5 to 6 week old puppies laid helplessly on a warming blanket to try to bring their body temperature up. One was brought home by the rescue, and the second pup remained in serious condition at the ER overnight for further testing. The rescue's bill at that point was already $3,000. The second pup died shortly after her arrival to the clinic. The pups did not have parvo, as was concluded by the lab tests. The rescue states the pups were full of fleas. It's important to understand that fleas can kill puppies when they're this little. It literally sucks the life right out of them. Puppies are very fragile, just like babies, and they need to be wormed and ridden of fleas. They need to be bathed and carefully defleed by a comb. You can't put medicine on even puppies that are this young because that would also be fatal. The shelter neglected to provide the care that was needed to rid these puppies from fleas for 11 days. They left them like this. Puppies that young should have been sent to a rescue immediately. This was clear neglect and negligence by Clewiston Animal Services, and due to their neglect, all 3 puppies are dead, and they had no chance at life. So Florida Statute 828.13 was violated by the staff, and this violation is a misdemeanor of the first degree, and it's punishable provided in the statute 775.082, or by a fine not more than $5,000 or both imprisonment and a fine. We ask that you please do your due diligence, look into these allegations. I really want to become a member of
Date of that, of the pup?
This is December 23rd, right, just a couple days before Christmas, sir. Yeah, through January 4th, they were there.
2024. The 2025.
2025.
Okay.
Yeah, like
all right.
Just
Thank
this
you.
month and last month, right before
into
Christmas.
January 25.
Appreciate it, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is James Decca, 213 DeSoto Avenue, Clewiston, Florida. You know, I saw this stuff on the Facebook, and being only here for 7 years, you know what? I said, well, let me just go over there and see. I called. They said they don't open until 11. So I said, you know what? I'm going to be there at 11. I walked in there at 11 in the morning. I don't know where all these pictures were, but the place was clean. They were cleaning the cages. Now, you only have 2 full-time people, 1 part-time person, and volunteers coming in. Now, I don't think people know that if those people that are working there get in a call, they got to leave. So they got to close the place up, because you can't have one person showing animals around, taking people, showing the animals, and all the desk and everything is, there's paperwork in that. What they need to do is they maybe need to get another part-time person, so when them people got to go, because they do go a hell of a long way, excuse the language, but, I mean, they do go a lot far. I've been there 4 times already since they were saying how bad it was there. I've walked in. That place is always clean. The animals are not abused. And talking about Montura, those animals aren't from Montura. They're in Montura because people coming take them there and drop them off. Now, to alleviate that problem, catch a couple of them people and give them about a $5,000 fine and see how that's going to happen. Yeah. And when these animals are running around out there, trust me, if I'm on a farm and them animals are running after my livestock, they're not going to run anymore. And that's it. And you go to any farmer, they're not going to have their animals being abused and bitten by these animals. I mean, the chief, I called the chief. He said, you can go there anytime you want. I mean, he's doing what he's doing what he has, and the people that he has there. But what the commission needs to do is, I think they need another couple people, and they need people to volunteer. I mean, I would go in there and volunteer, but I'm allergic to cats. Now, I always call to see how they are. And there are 34 cats in there right now, so they're at capacity. And the dogs are. But, we have no vet in Clewiston. No vet. And we have no place that, matter of fact, I called a few places last week. I'm waiting for them to get back to me, to veterinarian schools, that maybe they would come out when kids got to, when somebody's becoming a vet, they got to do training. You're not going to do it on a dead animal. Let them come in and get spayed and neutered here. And the groomers, people going to school to be groomers. We got to look into that. Let them come in. If we got to spend a little bit of money for the facility to fix it so they can wash dogs and, and operate on dogs, that would be something. But I'll keep checking on the place there. And, the chief does a good job, and his staff does. I mean,
Facility's got a great wash. It's got a great wash station.
Oh yeah, they do. When I was
nice
there, they
big
were
one.
clean. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Thank
Decker.
you.
Thank you, James.
We have
Good afternoon. My name is Linda Clem. I'm actually currently residing Lee County, Sarasota. I have 2. So I'm here to talk about a few different things. I do work with rescues. I transport a lot of animals from kill shelters to their new rescues or to their adopters. I have an extensive history. I was a surgical veterinary tech for a long time, and my career being right now, I'm a nurse. I have been for 35 years. So I work with animals every day, and I continue, and that's what I'm going to do in my retirement. So I'm here to advocate basically for immediate change to the operations and the oversight of the Swedish shelter. This is Franklin. Franklin, so everyone can see. You'll see 2 pictures here. One of him, how cute, right? Behind the kennel. The lower one was him probably minutes away from death. And how this happened was he was brought to the facility through no fault of his own. His owner had died. He could easily have been any citizen's lost dog, right? Anybody. That
He
dog
was brought to Clewiston's facility?
Clewiston, yep. He could easily have been a citizen's lost pet. Animal Services does have a duty to provide a safe haven for any animal that comes to their doors. They do, as most any shelter. But poor Franklin was placed in a kennel or a run with a poorly maintained door that divided him from another kennel, which housed an extremely dog-aggressive canine. Per reports I have heard from volunteers, there was a well-known issue with failure of the guillotine doors. They go up, they go down on a pulley. Well known.
unfairly the store. So in an event, it was allowed, the dog was able to breach the door and corner that poor little baby. He was trapped like a rat in his so-called safe haven, unable to escape and horrifically mauled. But this tragedy didn't end there. I was informed that when discovered, rather than seek immediate medical care, if I found him, he'd be in a car, I would close that place up and go. That's not what happened. A phone call was made to a rescue for them to come take him. Unfortunately, they didn't get there in time, and he suffered horribly, and he perished right there at the facility. This is very reprehensible, not only because what appears to be negligence in the maintenance of this facility, which, might I say, I am aware of a lot of improvements they have, and it was wonderful. There's been benefactors that have set in. But maintenance cannot be seen. Nobody could see that, except for the people that work there. But also what's going on there is seems to be an absence of protocol and procedures to obtain emergency medical care in a timely fashion to reduce animal suffering. I'm aware of all these updates to the facility. There has been no change in the personnel that allowed for this to happen, though. It didn't just happen once. It happened many times because of failure of the doors. I have seen the pictures taken, as you all have seen here now, of the horrific conditions which may have been in the past. Despite needed improvements provided by the benefactors, the same personnel that allowed for this condition, and again, independent of it may have been a little while back, they have stepped up, but the same people are still running this. I have seen your new budget, and I don't see any allowance in there for capital improvements to the physical plant. It appears that your recreational facilities may get a little more attention when it comes to facilities. I'm very confused as to why none of these horrific reports appear to be investigated. I was even more shocked to find out the shelter was overseen by law enforcement, and as you see in these pictures, clear violations of our Florida statutes.
Well, I have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay, so anyway, what I'm asking for is a complete root cause analysis to be done on all of these incidents reported. Any future or recent incidents of citizens in regards to the oversight and the daily operations of the Animal Control Department would be very much appreciated, because as we all have heard in the past, as the saying goes, you can put lipstick on a pig and not expect it to win a beauty contest. It's still a pig. Thank you.
Ma'am? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ileana Perez. I'm a resident and property owner in Clewiston. I live at 540 South Jeanette Street, and I am here to speak in regards to the neglect of the cats at Clewiston Animal Services. I'm going to start by saying that some of the quotes of a couple of rescues regarding the cats or the kittens that have been picked up, that we've picked up many kittens and taken there, they let their eyes rot out of their head. I can't begin to tell you how many kittens have died that they didn't even document, because the kittens are so vulnerable to the kind of unclean environment. They get sick. This rescue discovered not all of the kittens are documented and thereby not in their final numbers. The next quote referenced the pictures that I have here, as you can see. Living conditions that these poor kittens have to live. The litter box full of feces, not being cleaned daily. I think both of them look like that, and the animals were suffering. The conditions of the cat are appalling. The kennels, they are kept overcrowded, and in some cases, they do not even have enough room to even move. There is simply no way for the kittens to get any exercise. Based on a couple of the pictures of the Clewiston Animal Services Facebook page. They are finally using the cat condos that gives the cat and kittens room away from their cat boxes and additional respiratory relief. Looking at these pictures of the cat kennels shows why so many of them get sick after they come in. Once one is sick, left untreated, or quarantined properly, the others get sick. One rescue witnessed 2 kittens dead on top of a little kennels on the top of the cage. Young kittens do not create their own body heat. Therefore, the shelter must provide a constant warm spot in their kennel. If their body temperature drops, they get sick. Lack of proper cleaning of these kennels have created a lot of death. Many felines leave Clewiston Animal Services with their eyes infected and have to have at least one eye removed. There is nothing worse for a rescue than coming in and witnessing kittens crying of hunger because they aren't being fed as needed, seeing the infections, hearing cats struggling to breathe, all because the staff failed to help them. Rescues get burned out from the constant mess and death when the facility does not uphold their own duties of care. When rescues come, they would spend their time having to scrub down the place instead of being able to socialize with the animals. Here is what some rescues have said.
Ms.
I
Juliana,
got a
I won't
call.
have to cut you off, Ms. Juliana. I have one question for you, though. When's the last time you were there in the,
About 2 weeks ago.
okay.
When were these taking?
Well, there is heat and air out there.
And also automatic water feeders and food feeders. There's nothing that looks like that.
Yeah.
When were these taken?
This is from last year, 24.
Here?
Yeah. There is heat and air out there and cameras.
Specifically when they don't have the space, when they're around their litter boxes that look like this, they're breathing that in.
Yeah.
And if you were to walk into a home that's been, maybe with a hoarder or somebody who doesn't pick up after the animals, you walk in and all you smell is the ammonia. And that's what they smell. Just because they're not humans doesn't mean that they aren't affected by it as well. And it causes the health conditions that.
Okay, is there anyone else on deck?
One more.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
You?
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. Bob Pastula, Director of Emergency Management here for Hendrick County. I could echo the same. I'm not going to bore you with what Christine Peterson said and what Ms. Taylor said, because I agree with everything they said. But I do know that Chief Lewis and I meet pretty regularly to talk about the issues with the animal shelter, and we try to look for ways to improve the way things are going there. And Chief Lewis and I have worked side by side out there, putting up shutters for hurricanes, the sail shades to keep them safe. We came up with the idea to get fans outside for the dogs that would spray water to cool them off, and then we eventually went with air conditioning. And I say we because I feel like I'm invested with this as well. We use the animal shelter during hurricanes, and that was one reason for the shutters. When they come, if they run low on food during emergencies, we can get food from the state, and I've done that before, provided food and supplies to the animal shelter to help them clean and feed the animals. So I'm certainly not a DVM, so I can't address any of the issues that they're talking about here. But I know that from my experiences with Chief Lewis, that he's the last person I would say that would be cruel to any of these animals. He takes every one of them to heart. And some of the instances that they talked about, like the one where the dog was mauled, that one I remember in particular because the dog that did the mauling actually tore the door off the cage and got into the next cage. So it's things that are going to happen. It happens that way at the shelters. It happens in jails where we have people incarcerated. Those are things that are going to happen, especially when there's not 24-hour service there. There's not somebody there 24 hours. I think if you go in the morning when they're first opening up, you're going to see that there's feces and urine everywhere. But the employees do clean it up. I was there when I'm there a lot. I see them cleaning it up. I helped them put down some I forget what it's called, but surface, something on the surface to keep it clean and help it keep it clean a little bit better. You mentioned Jason, you mentioned the automatic watering systems and stuff like that. And so they have done nothing but improve, and Tom Lewis cares more than anybody else I know about those animals. As you all know, we used to be a kill shelter. We're not even a kill shelter anymore. He's doing his best to take care of these animals. During the hurricane, he called me and said, we are a little bit overcrowded. Is there anything you can do to help? And I called the state. We got somebody coming from out of the state to pick up the animals and relieve some of the pressure there with the population. So Tom does a very good job taking care of these animals. And you know, you can't be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unless we actually have somebody employed there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But as you all know, you've been there, you've seen what we've done, and I would say we're going to continue to improve as we go along. And I'm there to help Tom anytime he wants, and he's same thing with me. He's there to help me if I need anything. Any questions or?
Nope.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm here to, on behalf of the shelter, say my behalf on the shelter.
What's your name, sir?
Oh, excuse me, Leonard Whitaker. For those who don't know me, they call me Termite also. I've been up the shelter.
What's your address, sir?
1434 Grattan Road, Clewiston.
Thank you.
I've been up to the shelter many a times. The last month and a half, I've been up there every single day, a couple times, 2 times a day, even when they was closed, because I have Belgian Malinois. I adopted, or I'm fostering a Malinois right now that was a little unruly for other people. I went there every single day, twice a day sometimes, and I did not see what I've been reading on the posts. I did not see all the cruelty that I've been hearing on the post. My opinion is, if some of these people want to talk bad about what they're doing, do they realize this is an animal shelter that they pick dogs up off the street and bring in? And I don't care how many times my dog pens with my Malinois, I can pressure wash them right now, and in 20 minutes there's going to be poop on the floor. Only reason I come up here, y'all have never seen me up here. I came up here for the Clewiston Animal Shelter. Like I said, I went there Saturdays, Sundays. They said I could come when they was cleaning up. So because the dog I was getting was unruly, so I had to socialize with the dog a lot to get it to where I could get into with it. All I can say is these folks that's got a big darn problem with the Clewiston Animal Shelter, they do take volunteers that can go in there and help them if they're that damn concerned about it. I don't know what more anybody can say about it. They need to realize that is a shelter. It's not a adoption place. It's not where they raise dogs from puppies and everything else. They get them off the street. They need to recognize before they come up here and cause problems with the department. I work with the officers a lot. They got a good department. I don't know the chief. Don't care to know him. The officers that I work with on the street for the tow company are great. Deputies, Clewiston also. So on behalf of me and my family, that's what I had to say. God bless and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, we appreciate the comments. As you can see on the agenda, Chief Lewis has a presentation concerning the shelter. I'm going to ask him to come up and
Well, I appreciate everybody's presentations. I apologize ahead of time. It's kind of a boring one for you guys, so maybe we'll tone that down a little bit. One of the first things that I want to tell everybody, especially for the folks online watching, is our statistics that I'm going to go over in the very beginning, we are required by Florida law to report them on an annual basis, and we comply with that mandate. by partnering with Shelter Animals Count. That is actually a state vendor that's approved by the state to actually collect that data. We actually go a little bit above and beyond. We give them complete and full access into our system, and so they electronically extract that data every 2 to 3 days. And the reason that I tell people that is I'm always very skeptical of statistics. I always kind of feel like people can bend them and manipulate them, but the reality is we can't do that with this. These numbers are directly reported to the state on a very regular basis. So I'll get into them. This is our first. These are our cat intakes. This is a 3-year look. As you can see, we've had an almost 46% decrease in cat intakes over the last 3 years. We attribute this to the reason that we started our TNVR program. And we'll get into some statistics as far as how many cats that we TNVR. But as you can see, we're having a very positive impact in the community there. Next, these are cat and kitten adoptions. This particular slide, as well as the dog slide that we'll talk about in a little bit, my opinion is that this is the metric that we look at to determine whether or not the people in this community support our shelter. Because those are actual people that walked into our shelter, took a look around, wanted to adopt an animal, and then told their friends and family. If that shelter was not doing what it was supposed to be doing, the word of mouth, you would see these statistics going down. But what we actually see is year to year, we've seen a 190% increase in cat adoptions. Euthanasia, we have seen a slight increase, as you can see, this past year, but with such small numbers, that's just not a statistical significance. This is really where our issues are. We've seen a 100% increase in length of stay. This is really kind of a national trend as well as in the state. Unfortunately, hurricanes are hitting our coastlines, and they're actually destroying a lot of our rescues. And so across the state and across the nation, we're seeing rescues that are overpopulated. And so that's actually hurting us from a length of stay per se. Dog and puppy intakes, again, seeing a 45% decrease. We're not exactly sure what to attribute this to, but our calls for service, we've kind of changed our protocols. All animal control services actually now go through our police department so that we can track response times and things like that. So we do believe that increase in accountability has kind of helped in decreasing, make sure that we're getting out there, taking those calls for service, and not leaving those dogs out there on the street. Dog and puppy adoptions, again, we believe this is probably the most important metric to determine whether or not the community is supporting us. And again, 95% increase in dog adoptions. This is our dog euthanasia. Again, a little bit of an uptick this year, but again, such small numbers, it's really a statistical insignificance. Dog length of stay. So one of the issues here is you can see from 2022 to 2023, almost 3 times the amount. Seeing that trend again, the drop there in 2024, I would say is probably impacted by the emergency management helped us to actually clear the shelter during this last hurricane. So we believe that actually attributed to bringing some of those numbers down. So that is still a big issue is length of stay. So this is really kind of the meat and potatoes as far as our statistics are concerned. In the last 3 years, we've been in no-kill about 3.5, but in the last 3 years, to compare apples to apples, we've taken in just over 100 animals a month. 71.5% of those animals went to a no-kill rescue or shelter. Adopted directly out of our shelter, about 8%. Reclaimed by owner, very important to us, almost 7%. TNVR, you can see in there. Died in facility and euthanasia, we're going to talk about on the next slide. You can see that asterisk. Picked up a deceased animal. That's just a service that we provide to the community as far as, I hate to use the word roadkill, but everybody knows what that is, but we do go out and collect those animals and make sure they're properly disposed of. Still at the shelter, those are statistics that at the end of 2024 were still physically at our shelter and happened to be kind of compiled into these completely and escaped. We always have a few Houdinis. They're very interesting to deal with. So talking about died in the facility and euthanasia, those two metrics are obviously, aside from adoptions, are very, very important to us. We like to look at ourselves and determine in the bigger numbers, how do we compare to other shelters? How do we compare across the country, really? And so the Shelter Animals Count actually puts out an annual report. This is kind of a snapshot from that report. And as you can see up there under shelter euthanized, 9%, and died in care, another 2%. So that 11%, what's commonly referred to as non-live outcomes, you can see that that's kind of the average across the entire country. Now, with that said, we're being compared to facilities that have vets and clinics and things like that, resources that we really don't have here. But died in our facility, right now we're at 2.93%. Over that 3-year period, that's about almost 1% higher than the national average. Again, we attribute that to the fact that we don't have vet staff. We don't even have a vet here in town. It does impact our ability sometimes to properly, assess some of these animals. Euthanasia rate, the average again across the country is 9%. We're at 2.38%, and our total combined non-live outcomes is 5.31%, which, quite frankly, is twice as good as the national average. And considering we have half the amount of resources, we don't think we're really doing that bad. Moving on, this is a little overview of our shelter. We have an ideal capacity to hold 40 to 50 cats, and the reason there's a variation there is because it depends on how many kittens. We can obviously house some of them together depending upon space size. When I ran this report in January, our population number was 36. I think it's almost exactly the same today. It's right in that number. We have an ideal capacity to hold 14 dogs. When I ran the report, we were at 31. I want to say we're maybe about 36, 37, maybe even close to 40 today. But the highest population number, just to give you guys a kind of an idea of what we deal with, the highest population daily number in 2024 was 62. So with an ideal capacity to house 14, you can see it really kind of stretches our resources. We talked a little bit about, I know you guys heard some issues with the guillotine doors. That's actually one of the improvements I'll talk about here in just a little bit. And although we're not ideal to house any other type of animals, we've had some interesting ones come into our shelter. I will say the bald eagle was kind of cool, but ultimately all of those type of animals go off to a rescue. So what do we do when we're over capacity? That's obviously a big issue. Cats are a little easier than dogs. Cats, you can really erect a lot of temporary kennel systems and wait for those population numbers to come down. But the reality is dogs need to be housed separately unless they come in together. So what do we do with those when we need overflow kennels? This past year we purchased, you can see that picture there on the left. Those are 4-foot by 4-foot temporary, again, kennels. They have a little roof shade structure on the top. They're purchased from Tractor Supply here locally. They are placed in a breezeway, if you will, in between our two building facilities. And then we coat the concrete with that product that you see there in the middle. It actually reduces the temperature of the concrete by about 38%, so about 20 degrees total. It makes it a little bit more comfortable for the dogs. And then, of course, we add commercial fans to make sure that they have proper ventilation. Is this ideal housing? No, it's probably not, but this is the reality when you have 62 dogs and an ideal capacity to hold 14. Shelter improvements, you've heard a little bit of comments here and there. This is really kind of a great list of the more significant ones. The list was pretty long, but I didn't want to keep you guys here all night. So some of the really great ones, though, aside from the complete remodel, we created, now we have 4 play yards as opposed to 1 when we took over 3 years ago. All of those play yards have been coated with canine grade artificial turf, and that was through a $23,000 donation. We also have automatic waterers for all the dogs. That was a $4,000 donation. We have all new automatic waterers and automatic feeders for cats. Those guillotine doors have been replaced with the finest guillotine doors that the market allows. These are insulated, ironclad. They have bite guards, all new cabling and pulley systems. So the reality is when we do have an issue, which does occur, the reality is that we address that issue and so it doesn't occur again. Moving on. Oh, actually, there's just one other. One of the things that you might read on this Facebook account is that we've put up privacy slats around the facility. That's something that we completed just in the past month. The reality is we get boo-foo frogs. And for those folks that are listening that don't know what boo-foo frog is, they're extremely large, but they're also very toxic to dogs. And we have been affected by them on several occasions. And so in an effort to keep them out of our facility, we're trying to clog up all of those spaces in our chain link fencing that surrounds the perimeter of our facility. It's literally an effort to keep out the boo-foo frogs so that we can at least take one additional step to try to protect those animals. Sorry about that. I don't know if I'm pointing this. So a little bit more about our facility and who visits. 241 local families came in and reclaimed their lost pet. 289 completely different families came into our shelter and adopted a pet. And of course, as you can see from the list there, a whole host of other folks. We have people that physically walk into our building every single day. This is not, people will paint it out to be like there's some secret basement where we torture animals. But the people that physically live here, that actually physically walk into our shelter, they realize how great of a facility it actually is. Facility inspections, these are actually formal inspections, some that we asked, like the University of Florida, to come in. We asked that they review all of our policies, all of our equipment, all of our training, just to make sure that we were actually up to industry standards. The Department of Health comes in, announced and unannounced, on a very regular basis. We actually have an institutional permit through them, which we're required to by law. We have a pharmacy license as well as a DEA license because we have controlled drugs there. They give us a written report. We never have an issue. They clearly like what they see. We've had media outlets in there. We've had career source supervisors who we partner with come in announced and unannounced. We have accreditation assessors. As you know, we recently accredited. They came in, visited the facility. They looked at all of our policies, all of our training, and clearly, you know from that outcome that that was well. We also have very, very regular inspections by our police department staff, and those are announced and unannounced as well. So anybody that suggests to you that we only clean up when people are coming, I can assure you that must be a lot. A couple of facility awards that we won. In 2022, we took Shelter of the Year from the Florida Animal Control Association. That's for the entire state of Florida. Very proud of that. And then the following year, for the entire year, we took Partner of the Year from Career Source of Southwest Florida. Folks that have come in and done announced and unannounced inspections. Shelter staffing. So right now we are full staffed. Very proud of that. We have a part-time kennel technician, 2 animal control officers, and a shelter manager. And again, for those of you that are listening that are not familiar with our shelter, we did realize that there was a need for an on-site manager. We added that position last fiscal year, and the first time we hired for that position was January 2024. So that's a new addition. Staffing-wise, we also partner with Career Source of Southwest Florida. They send us some high school-age kids that is completely free to the taxpayers here. It's paid for by Career Source. And of course, we have other volunteers, fosters, and folks that need community service hours that we partner with just to get more help out there. Employee attrition. I like this slide with the little people there because it really kind of gives you an overview. We have a total of 4 employees. And prior to this last budget year, we only had 3 employees. And so as you can see, whenever we have an issue with an employee, which anybody who has ever been a supervisor before will tell you, there's always an issue, right? But we hold people accountable. Have we had performance issues? Without question. But we separate with those employees, and we hire new employees, and we move on. But to suggest that the same employees are here, same employees are there, from a facility that has 4 total employees, 3 in those first 2 years, I would say that that's just not factual. Calls for service. This more so is like a workload overview, as far, if you will. This is outside of the shelter, but for our animal control staff. The gray number represents the total calls for service in that year. And as you can see, we've had a 38% increase in calls for service over the last few years. And you can see the breakout there. Blue is the city, and the orange is county calls for service or anything outside the city. One notable thing you can see in the last 2 years is that those seem to be like 50-50 as far as the number of calls for service. But the amount of time that encumbers our staff to drive out back and forth to Montura or some of these other areas that are in the county is much, much more than what you would see as far as the total number of calls here for the city. The time encumbered is definitely not equal. All right, so the big elephant in the room, you've obviously already heard from some folks, and so I just want to address, not every single one, there's been a lot of posts, but I do want to address, again, just a couple, if you will. This is a brand new Facebook page that has been, I want to, well, I'll say it's December 28th, just because I see that number up there, somewhere around there. Somebody came up with this. So this is the first one. I think some snapshots have been shown here today. I will tell you guys, and anybody listening, this is real. This is every day, in every kennel, in every shelter in America. And if anybody can tell me how to stop it, my God, I'd work a second job to buy the pill. All right, but there's no magic pill. We feed these animals every single day, and this is the outcome. We come in the morning, and we have to clean. And that's you just can't stop it. We do not have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week staff. So we come in the morning, and this is what our staff have to deal with. Now, there is also the other reality that we have a very small staff. They do occasionally have to drive out to Montura before they go to the shelter in the morning. Could this be 9:30, 10 o'clock? It certainly could. I mean, the reality is I wasn't given the opportunity to look into it until I was embarrassed on Facebook. But this is reality. And if you don't think it is, if you don't think this is in every shelter, you would be mistaken. This particular dog is another Facebook post. I kind of like this. This is Twinkie. The picture on the left is purported to be the intake photo into Clewiston Animal Services. One of the things that you won't read on their post is that this dog came in February of 2022. Apparently back then it wasn't an issue because nobody brought it to my attention, but almost 3 years later, apparently it's a crisis. This particular dog, which you won't read on their Facebook page, was captured by a resident here in Clewiston. She tried to capture not only this dog, but also the 8 puppies that this dog was nursing. Unfortunately for us, and unbeknownst to us, she only captured the mother, and the puppies were nowhere to be found. So after this dog stopped nursing 8 puppies, and also was full of worms, which our records indicate that we gave her a 3-day dewormer, of course this dog lost a couple pounds. She stopped nursing, and she had worms. It was in our facility for 32 days, and then it went to Suncoast Humane Society. This is a picture-perfect idea of exactly what we do at Clewiston Animal Services. So if you want to see what it is, we actually get sick dogs that ultimately have all kinds of circumstances. We fix them up as best we can, and we get them off to a rescue. And this was with us 32 days. I mean, I honestly don't know exactly what it is other than the agenda that they're trying to portray. This is, again, just another cat. This particular, and I apologize, the allegation here was that we starved this dog to death. In the next picture, this is a cat. His name is Mr. Tom. This guy was in our facility, and yes, he was sick. Mostly every animal that comes into our facility is sick. We find them living outside, drinking out of a ditch, living under somebody's porch. They're not like somebody's pet. Every single one that comes in is sick. This particular cat, the allegation on this one is that we're not giving it medical attention. But when you look into the file, you can actually see that we actually took this animal to the Clewiston Humane Society vet clinic, got it medication, and gave it the medication before it left our facility. You won't read that on Facebook. This is another post here on the left. There's a picture of 4 dogs, but actually there's only 2 dogs here. What they're referring to as a before and after. The actual rescue that took this dog from our facility came to our defense and ultimately got attacked. Not only did she say that these dogs were fine and ultimately we got adopted, but there on the right, they actually stick up for our staff and say how cooperative and nice they were in the entire transition, and ultimately these folks just attacked them. This is, again, another one. This particular post that was put on there has been since deleted. But a person in this community who is in our facility who adopted a puppy from us also came to our defense. And so they just simply deleted that from view. The very bottom portion, that is an actual current volunteer. She's been a volunteer with us for, I don't even know, maybe 3 years. I'm ballparking. She came to our defense. What do they do to her? They attack her too. They're not interested in the truth. There's an agenda here. And so I just want to break down the 3 allegations, 3 main ones here. The first one is that we don't feed those in our care, that we're starving animals to death. And I offer to at least the commission, this is our food budget. And so the blue is what I believe, it's very, very difficult to know what the population numbers are going to be, to anticipate length of stay and some other factors that will impact this. But if you just look at last year alone, we budgeted $6,000 and we spent $17,042. That does not include all of the food that has been donated, and we do get an abundance of food from folks, and of course we use that. But I'm not sure who's eating all of this food, but my suspicions are it's the animals at the shelter. Second allegation is that we're not providing medical care. Again, here's our medical budget. When I got here in 2021, we had a $600 medical budget, and I have since, with your approval, we have raised that medical budget to $8,100. So the reality is we went from 0 funding and probably worse outcomes per se to now having more money and the ability to have better outcomes. And of course, this does not include the first time approval of the $30,000 for a spay and neuter program that you also approved. So in addition to this large increase just for medical bills, there's also another $30,000 that the City Commission approved for that we also flex with medical needs. And then, of course, the third allegation, which is we're not cleaning up for those in our care. And again, I like the budget numbers. As you could see, this last fiscal year, we budgeted $11,390 and spent almost $25,000. Now, these numbers are obviously just snapshots of specific line item accounts. For your guys' pleasure, it certainly would almost, we laughed when we were looking at these because it almost makes it look like I'm not very fiscally responsible by overspending. But the reality is, the reality is we look at other areas of the budget when we need these monies, right? When we didn't anticipate the cost of cleaner or the cost of food going up and things of that nature, and our staff go without other things that they need and want just to make sure that these animals are cared for. These are facts. So I always like to know who's doing it and why. And I offer to you the actual truth. What happened was when I got here in June of 2021, the reality is that volunteers were running the place. That's just a fact. They were running roughshod over the employees. They had been embedded into the shelter for a very, very long time. We had a very particular volunteer with us, and it was assisting us with actually coordinating out to local rescues. To be honest with you, it worked great. She had been at the facility for a long time. She had those relationships built. But the problem is, it seemed that she wanted to be in charge. And we started to get complaints from the staff that she was constantly telling them what to do, chastising them for her perceived performance issues. And so we really kind of had to, pare that down, constantly have meetings with her and things like that. Then we learned that she was actually having people out in Montura call her directly and telling them, animal control doesn't care, you need to call me directly, I will come out. And then she would actually respond to their home, trapping dogs, trapping cats, and then she would bring those animals into the shelter. The liability is just absolutely astronomical, aside from the fact that, for those of you that do not know, in the state of Florida, I am required by Florida law that any animal control officer that I hire has to go to a 40-hour state-approved school to have an animal control officer certification. I can't just pretend because you're a nice volunteer that you can go out and do animal control officer duties and all of those job responsibilities and just completely skirt the law as far as the proper training. In addition to that, accreditation standards mandate that any volunteer that does work for us has to be trained in the job that we want them to perform. The reality is we didn't want this volunteer or any volunteer performing these duties. If they got bit on somebody else's property or crashed their car on the way to or from, we felt that the liability was too great. The reality, though, is she just wouldn't stop. Eventually, we had somebody come in and complain and wanted to file criminal charges against her for stealing their dog, claimed that she had baited it off their property, taken the dog, and brought it to the shelter. Our computer records indicated that that dog was intaked into our shelter on the day by her of the complaint. We ultimately talked to this resident of Montura, and ultimately got him to agree that we would handle it administratively, give her some additional training, and hopefully just try to stop that type of behavior. And so that's what we did. I personally gave her very formal training, sign-in sheets, the whole deal, just to make sure everything was properly documented. And ultimately, the reality is she just wouldn't stop. After that, this is just kind of an overview. Am I running too long, Danny? Okay. I apologize for it's a lot of words. But I want the community to understand what the law is. And so you cannot go out into the community and just simply trap a dog. I understand that these dogs are out there and these cats are out there, and the thought of them suffering is, people think that they're doing great work. But the reality is that could be someone's pet. And so if the law looks at animals, doesn't matter if it's cattle or it's horses or it's a dog or a cat, it's somebody's property. And so there's no difference between a dog and a wallet. If you find lost or abandoned property in the state of Florida, which would include a dog or a cat, you are mandated by law to hand that over to law enforcement. And these are the actual statutes that mandate it. The reason those laws are in place, and by the way, not doing it, if you just trap a dog and you bring it to a rescue and hand it over, that's an arrestable offense. I realize that folks would say they're doing great work, they're saving the animals and all that good stuff. But the reality is these laws were made for a reason. And that reason is the second law that's up there. When it talks about lost or stray dogs and cats, we are held, when you hand that dog or cat over to the shelter, we are mandated by law within 48 hours to give public notice. That way, the person that owns the dog or cat, whether it's microchipped or not, you're not mandated by law to microchip your dog. But if your dog on New Year's Eve or 4th of July is scared of fireworks and runs out of your house, if it runs into somebody else's trap, they can't just steal your dog and take it somewhere else. But I'm telling you right now, that is exactly what is occurring. And I understand people think they're out there doing God's work and they're doing a great thing, but the reality is they're breaking the law. These are the laws that mandate, not only do I have to publicly notice it in 48 hours, but under the city ordinance, I have to hold that animal for 5 days at the shelter to give the owner the opportunity to come and reclaim their pet. And as you can see, almost 7% of the dogs that we intake into our facility are reclaimed by their owner. I would estimate probably 80 to 90% of those dogs have no microchip. But the reality is, if they happen to get caught into a trap in Montura, they're going to be stolen. It doesn't matter if you think what you're doing is good or bad. It's against the law. So, moving on, the reality is we separated from this particular employee because she would not stop breaking the law. And so now this particular volunteer is operating under a 501c3. She continues to trap dogs and cats out in Montura. The problem now is she has no facility to bring them to. She has no nice government budget to give them food and to give them medicine. And so the reality is I'm the one that kicked them out of the shelter. And so now they believe that if I leave the shelter, that will create a void, and they will just simply fill that void. And then they will basically be able to operate like it's their own personal rescue once again. That's the reason why all of this is happening. I hate all the drama, but this is real. So then there's the other side. The other side is the money. And so, like the root of all evil, it always kind of boils down to the dollars, right? And so here's how it works, especially for those folks. Those folks that really don't know, puppies come into our facility all the time. We get French bulldogs, we get Yorkies, we get every kind of dog that you can imagine. We don't just get pit bulls, although we do get a lot of those. But the reality is, when the dog comes into our facility, we're going to vaccinate it, we're going to give it medicine, a bath if it needs it, flea and tick medicine, dewormer, whatever it is that this particular animal needs. All of those costs, to include feeding it, housing it, and caring for it, are all going to be borne by the taxpayer, right? It comes right out of the shelter budget. Now, we already talked about intake.
No,
No, you're not.
Let him finish, please.
So,
There's no room to speak on this. Speak about the law.
so the reality is, all of those costs are taken out of our shelter budget, every single dollar. But as we talked about our intake numbers, we're getting 100 animals intaked in a month. And so we have to get rid of those animals. When I say get rid of them, they have to go off to their final destination, whether it's adoption, whether it's off to a rescue, whatever the case may be. And so they go to a rescue, let's say hypothetically, free of charge. We don't charge the rescue money. And I'm certainly not up here saying that we should. But sometimes that rescue, all they have to do is literally just take it, put a bow on it, put it online with a nice cute little picture, and they get $250, $300 adoption fee for that French Bulldog or that Yorkie or that Maltese or whatever it is that nice dog is. And so this particular volunteer, that was her job. Her job was to network these animals out. There are great rescues out there. We dealt with 60 of them in the past 2 years. Completely different rescues on a constant basis, but I mean, there's a number of rescues. Great rescues, that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the rescues who have a shed in their backyard, all right? And when you talk about a 501c3, You can go onto the Department of State, register as a 501c3. It probably costs you less than $100. You put a shed in your backyard, you call yourself a rescue, and the next thing you know, you're fundraising online. Not every rescue out there is reputable. And so these non-reputable rescues, this is about money. And if you're the volunteer that gets to decide who gets the good dogs and who gets the bad dogs, boy, you become very powerful and influential to those rescues that only have a shed in their backyard. And they need that $250 or $300 just to operate and keep the lights on the next month. That's what this is about. All of this nonsense, this is about money and power and control and all of that stuff. It's got nothing to do with the facts. Seeing years-old photos and trying to, make stories up that really don't exist when the facts aren't there is really what this is going to boil down to. So I do have a few more slides after this, talking about the future of the shelter. But do you guys have any questions before I move on?
Just one real quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
You had mentioned that by law, the requirements that you have at the shelter.
Yes.
To do certain things with that animal.
Yes.
Okay. And then at that point, if a rescue comes in, after the 5 days, I imagine you have to wait.
Correct.
Okay, because you got to notify that they've got to stay there if they're missing somebody's pet.
Correct.
Right.
Unless it's an owner surrender. Sometimes if there's an owner surrender, we get a document and they can go out as soon as possible.
So, but even if it's an owner surrender, you're still having to go through the requirements.
No, the owner surrender, so then it becomes our property instantly. All right. And
I'm saying as far as making sure the animal's okay.
Correct.
Okay, so then the rescues, you let the rescues know that you have these animals, or they'll come and check with you. I take it that
Correct.
they come and check.
Yeah, we're constantly
Okay.
networking.
So
with them.
so we don't recoup any of the money from the rescues. It's just to try to find a home or try to find a place for the animals is what we do.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not really a revenue generating. We are definitely spenders, without question. Now we do get donations, and we use those. We typically, again, prior to the $30,000 that we approved just this fiscal year, it has been our pattern to always use donation money for spay and neuter.
So there's not an adoption fee or there's not a rescue fee.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. Everything that we do is structured 100% either in the city ordinance or the county ordinance. Fines and fee structures, we separate those because the county has different fine structures sometimes. But as far as boarding fees, if you are an owner and you come through, you will have to pay $5 a day for boarding and things like that. But other than that, we don't really generate revenue.
But we do charge you to adopt a pet, right?
No, ma'am.
Unless you get them spayed and neutered?
No. So the way
Do you do it that way?
No. Well, I take it back. Since I've been here, so the city ordinance does not allow for an adoption fee. What the Florida state law says is that every public shelter, I cannot adopt an animal out unless it's been spayed or neutered. There's one exception in there, though, that we can enter into a 30-day agreement that the adopter will actually bear those costs as long as they spay or neuter the animal within 30 days. There's a couple of exceptions if the animal's too young to be spayed or neutered, or there's some medical issue that a vet approves the delay. But that would be the only cost, I would say, per se, to them. There's no actual adoption fee at all.
So the lack of fees, that's standard through other shelters that you know of?
For shelters like us, the answer is yes, because we got 100 animals coming in a month. We don't want to create financial obstacles now to get the animals, out. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I move on?
Clarify something.
Sure.
Since you put up the Florida statutes, so the rescues, and I know we have some here that are in Monterey getting dogs, so they're required by law, if they pick up a dog out there on a street, wherever, to do the statute and post that dog's picture and for 5 days? Is that?
No. So absent of its being an owner surrender, like you as a dog owner or a cat owner, you can hand your dog off to anybody, right? Anybody in this room, you could say, hey, I want you to come onto my property and take custody of my dog. That's your property. You can transfer possession of that. I'm talking about stray dogs, abandoned dogs, lost dogs, any dog that you're trapping and you don't know who the owner is. You're not required to do any of that. You're required by law to call law enforcement and report that and hand it over.
Oh, they have to hand it to law enforcement or an animal control officer?
Correct.
Oh, so I'm assuming you guys are doing that.
Unless it's an owner surrender, which is just you giving possession of your personally owned dog or cat to someone else.
For an example, when we were contacted to please trap a dog
they have to get written permit? Wouldn't you have to get written permission?
We,
Different opinions.
yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So just got a few more slides here. I just want to just briefly talk about the future of our shelter. Oh, yeah, and for anybody here, I know there's quite a few people in the room that have never been to our shelter, but these are actually pictures of our play yards and some of our adoptions. So talk about quickly about residential growth. So our facility opened in 2008. And in 2008, we didn't have the population numbers that we have here. We service eastern Hendry County, which is about 500 square miles. Again, for those that are listening, we don't just service the city of Clewiston. And so in our service area, we've actually had 513 homes built since 2017. And so the reason I say that is because when there's more homes, eventually there's going to become more pets and more animals. And so the need, I'm sorry? But the problem is that our facility is not growing in size. And so when the need, right now we are over capacity on an everyday basis. And so as we continue to build out Montura, as we continue to build out other areas, our facility is going to become essentially smaller and smaller. So just taking a look at the overall budget, when I got here in the 2021-2022 fiscal year, our budget was $268,000. And that was with capital expenditures. And as you can see this year, it's just over $500,000. And so we don't see that trend stopping. Things are getting more expensive. As population numbers are growing in our shelter, so is the need to purchase more things. I will tell you, maintenance in a facility that has 62 dogs is expensive. It just is. These dogs are bored all day long, and they're like teenagers. They just find things to destroy. And so again, these are just some future budget considerations. We think with increased animal population, we also think we're going to have increased calls for service with that increase in population here, and so we're going to need more staffing eventually. We potentially are going to need a larger facility, or at least an improved facility, so that we can actually properly house the number of dogs that we have. Vehicle replacements, I bring up, if we continue to service all of eastern Hendry County, the amount of mileage that we're putting on our current vehicles, those vehicles are going to need to be replaced on a more regular basis. And of course, like we already talked about, the food, the fuel, operating, things aren't getting any cheaper. I'm certainly hopeful with, new political leadership that maybe that might be the case, but moving into the future, I still think it's worth discussion. And that's it. So again, I apologize for the boring presentation, but do I have any questions at all?
Enlightening on a lot of areas. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Any questions by the commission?
No, I just would like to see a breakdown, Tom, on the hours. I know that when you looked at the calls in the city and calls outside the city, is there any way we can track the amount of hours on some of those calls? Or do you have
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Dan, will you write that down?
I'm just so that we know as we go into budget time, the amount of hours that are spent on the road versus at the shelter.
Sure, not a problem. We'll look at that. I would definitely get you those numbers. Whether we could do that for a year or whatever, I'll just get them to you as I can.
I'm just thinking even between now and budget time. I'm just looking at.
I definitely could do that
averages.
for sure. I'll make that a priority.
My only comment, I've been to the shelter. Been there many times before you were here. On the commission, involved in when the shelter was built. And I can tell the audience and our citizens, it's night and day from back then and when you took over.
I appreciate that.
You rallied the troops, and matter of fact, some of you ladies and men that came over might have even helped us rehab our facility back in 21, 22 when you got here.
Yes, sir.
So I appreciate the heart of everyone that spoke tonight. I'm glad that you're out there helping the animals. But our facility is awesome, and it's just getting better. Anyone can go in a facility and take a picture at some point of a dog, of a kennel, and we can make it look bad. But it's just not that way. And if anyone thinks it is, you're welcome, and I'll charge the chief. You're welcome to get with him any day of the week unannounced and go out there. And I will guarantee you will be impressed.
Not to cut you off, Mayor, but I will say we beg people to come. On Facebook, every single one of our posts says, come to the facility, because we're convinced you will fall in love with an animal there and you will help another animal, get to somebody's couch, is the way we like to put it. So if this is the impetus that gets more folks to our shelter, I will personally give anybody a tour. Everybody in this city, I think, by now has my cell phone number. They know they need no appointment. They can come into the police department. We'll sit down. I'll drive them over there to the shelter myself and give them a tour.
Maybe some of these folks can come volunteer.
We're always looking for volunteers.
That's what I'm saying. We always are.
Hundreds of likes and comments on Facebook page on what we can do, but nobody's willing to come over here and help. So,
You didn't ask us.
Yourself included.
was that me? Yeah, I've been up there plenty.
But you never asked any of us if we volunteered.
That's where I'm new here. I'm just here in November. I've been here since November. So what I've witnessed in my times going up there, I've never seen any of you. I don't know any of you personally. I do know you guys off of social media, some. I've heard.
In the animal shelter?
No, I don't have an office.
Okay, so you.
Clear up also the dogs that we trapped. Or the owner was deceased. So they were not thought it was the line.
And to follow up an answer to a question that you had to us earlier, the Winter Ranch Animal Sanctuary was the one that provided us with the texts and screenshots
No,
of,
I asked that question. Winter Ranch?
yeah, Winter Ranch Animal Sanctuary.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you very
from
much.
Chief, all right. Thank you, Chief Lewis. We
Thanks,
appreciate
Chief.
it. Now, we're going to move on to the regular agenda. If you're from out of town, you don't have to stay for the rest of this. It might be boring to you, but you're welcome to leave at any time. Again, thank you. Thank you for your heart for helping animals and getting them relocated and rescued. We do appreciate that very much.
Ask one question to the chief.
Well, Chief,
Y'all
will
can-
you step outside? She
Yeah.
has a question. Y'all can talk out there all night.
I apologize. You caught me not paying attention.
I was
Yeah,
asking if I
this
could
young
ask
lady
you
has a question. Okay. In fact, we'll take a 5-minute recess since we've been sitting a while, so 5 minutes.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, he's been, knows his stuff, that's for sure.
Sandy like her haircut?
She did. She really did.
Okay, we'll reconvene and call the commission meeting back to order. We have a consent agenda. I would like to just pull item 10A, which is the fair, just so we can clarify one thing on there. Anyone else? If not,
Consent? No.
we'll entertain a motion to approve.
So
A
moved.
motion.
Motion by Gardner, second by Edmonds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? On 10A, it's the Fair Board, Henry County Fair. It says yes for alcohol. We determined that that is probably the Friday night when they do the cattle and pig sale. I just would like to designate that that's the only time. Is that
I'll,
okay with everyone?
Yeah, I'll get with the fair board on that and make sure, see what's going on, for sure.
Okay, so then a motion to approve with that designation.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Highslope, second by Gardner. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a public hearing on page. Okay, this is ordinance, a public hearing for consideration of ordinance 2025-01. Wow, first one. I'll read this ordinance by title, and then we'll open the public hearing. This is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Clewiston, Florida, abandoning, vacating multiple unused road and alleyways described more particularly herein within the City of Clewiston, Florida, reserving a public utility easement over the same, and for other purposes, providing conflict severability, providing for an effective date. The public hearing is open. Anyone in the public that would like to speak, you're more than welcome.
Mr. Mayor, I will abstain from any discussion.
Commissioner Gardner will abstain. Seeing no movement out there, any questions, comments by the commission? Any questions for Danny or our city engineer? Okay, hearing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed and entertain a motion.
Motion.
Motion by Edmonds,
Second.
second by Highslope. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries on the first reading. I encourage everyone to go over the map, and if you haven't already, if you have any questions about any of those easements. The only question I had with Danny was our future lakefront property. We just want to make sure that in the future, you know, when we develop more over there, that we have an alleyway or maybe a street that's going to come back into the city. And he assured me there was a couple of,
I think where you see, if you point up there, Mayor, where that canal between, right, there will be an access point right there.
okay.
And
then
also
even-
one just inside off of, I believe that's what points.
And later, when this is all developed, wherever it crosses 27, maybe have a road that goes back and they can get back to the lake
Right.
area.
Agree.
So if anyone has any different thoughts, we can bring it up at the second reading. And we can always abandon an easement later, not an easement, but a right-of-way. But we will be keeping easements in all of these areas.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we have discussion on the on the Community Redevelopment Agency application in the Paint Up Signage Program.
Mayor, I just wanted for you all to look over it and see if that's what you wanted. The application was redone, and I just gave you a sample of what it would be if you were to do a paint up. It gives everything. It also gives a limit. So I just really want to know, is that the direction you all want it to go in? so I can do the other ones and then bring it back for final decision.
I just had some comments on it, because of the, I don't think we've ever gone in, Travis, maybe you can answer this question, but we've never included project consultancy and design, project feasibility consult, project design services. Okay, it's always been the actual work itself, that then they submit the receipts of the work that they've done, but I guess we need to have a approval process beforehand, so I'm not sure if that's what's meant on that. Okay.
That way we're not flying blind. You know
Yeah.
exactly where the money's going.
Not only that, you know exactly what the person wants to do.
Well, I mean, they've always had to supply plans, so I wasn't sure, I just wanted to make sure that if that was what that meant, I wasn't
Yes,
sure,
ma'am.
Lakeisha.
That's what it is.
I know we had a workshop on this, and I still had, after the workshop, I had even more thoughts, or that we were gonna do, the paint up and signage, and then, I guess, levels of what we were gonna do. And I don't know, we haven't decided on those, the amounts, like if it's gonna be a demolition up to what amount. And, if it's going to be a $100,000 project, $50,000 project, $25,000 project. I know that the property owner has to pay for whatever they're gonna be doing, and then we would match up to a certain amount under these categories. So I just didn't know if those categories should be included on the application, but I know that we haven't made those decisions yet.
That's just a sample of one of them. We do have one that has a site, and then we also have a category for larger things that the gentleman that came in wanted to speak about.
Right.
So that, what I'm showing you tonight is just samples of the different projects. And when I looked at the other CRAs, Delray, Boynton, West Palm, in those different categories, they only match up to a certain amount. But the owner has to show where they have already started the project. And it also states on the application, just because you put in doesn't mean you'll get accepted. So I just wanted you all to see a sample, and then if you wanted me to move forward.
In that direction.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we want to put a top limit on it, or just use the discretion of the board as to how much funding they can have?
I think I'd put a limit on
Yeah,
it.
I'm not comfortable with picking and choosing,
Yeah, I
this
mean,
guy
you
gets
get
this
caught up
and
in the
this
bias
woman
of it.
gets
I
that.
have no idea how
Correct.
much things cost nowadays, so I don't even know, what would be a recommendation from Travis or from,
And but
the
the goal
city
isn't like to
manager?
pay, the goal is just to assist,
Right,
yeah?
right, it's just,
Yeah.
and it's only a portion.
Yeah.
And
One,
it's-
one quick comment. Travis Reese, Fire Chief, Community Development Director. You asked me at the workshop to look into the cost. We started that facade grant program, which included painting, and we had a $5,000, up to a $5,000 match. So you could spend up to $10,000. And there were some nuances. If you had multi-tenant buildings. So I looked back and looked at the consumer price index for inflation. Now, that's not all encompassing. That's just, if you're familiar with that, what the inflation rate is from 2007 to today, 2025. I found that 5,000 equals today around $7,600. So, but keep in mind, that's just the inflation through that index. In the building trade world, there's also the product index that we have to look at for inflation. So there's other factors. So at minimum, if you just use that, your $5,000 in 2007 is now $7,600. So
That's just basically for
that's just
paint.
basics. I just want to interject that real quick. And if you wanted to do some sort of budget for a CRA budget, to give you an idea, I love the idea of the painting one where you can encourage those lower dollar amounts because you get a lot of bang for buck with those.
Right.
You could put some money aside for that, and then maybe a facade kind of separate where you can really, if you remember some of the buildings we really made a difference with, they're larger. And you can even consider, what if your match could be different on some of those, or your match could be more on the smaller ones that you're just trying to get the paint out there, or rebranding signage. So
Stucco
infrastructure.
versus brick, so
Right,
to
and
speak.
infrastructure, we and the managers talked much about the need for infrastructure and, to have a nice percentage of money for things that maybe aren't glamorous, but are needed, that are underground, that
Right.
really, you guys can
You can dress
appreciate.
it up as much as you want.
Right, and it really, to me, really helps more, but the citizens don't see that, and the property owners don't see it. So I just want to interject that real quick.
I mean, there's still so many, I know you have more samples, and I just think, I'm throwing it out. We have a meeting on February the 17th. Could we do another CRA workshop before that? And that we all need to be, maybe you guys give us more information so that we can then finalize some things at the next
You're gonna do
meeting?
that, correct?
I mean, like other ideas for funding assistance, the actual levels of what, I mean, again, we saw a rendition of brick. Well, but other people just stucco the front of their building, or other people, or decorative elements added to a building. So I would imagine that a brick facade is gonna be a lot more than a stucco facade.
Right,
So
because you'd
do
have a
we
lot more buy-in with that.
what, are there different categories that we would, and I just hate to sit here and come up with some stuff, and even though I like the look of the application, I just don't know if we, maybe with some other samples, we can determine. I know we can change it at any time. I just think before our next meeting, if we could have a workshop, and I just suggested the same day, because we could come earlier, but I'm just throwing it out there for you
I
guys.
think it's a very good idea. I don't think we want to come at this not having all our I's dotted and our T's crossed, because
Yeah, if I,
it's a great program, and it's a large sum of money.
yeah, you got money in the budget now to actually work with, so we gotta do it the right way.
So you want another
We wanna
workshop?
maximize the
Maybe do
redevelopment.
a facade. I mean, we'll have different categories, but to me, the old one, the old facade grant back in '06 or whenever it was anything on the facade. Some people did storefront doors and painting. I don't know if anyone did landscaping, but I would definitely include it on this
There
one.
was some landscaping.
So we could do just an idea, one category is a facade grant up to $25,000, and I'm just throwing numbers out. And it can include just painting. It can include all of the above, the doors and the windows on the facade, brick. And if someone just says, I want to paint, well, obviously, they're not going to get 25 grand.
I almost think that we should stipulate that, like, up to 25,000, but no more than 50%.
Right,
You
and we
know.
can stipulate that.
Right.
And then the next category might be something more involved.
Yeah, I think your facade grant could be that. So you're changing the actual structure of the building. You're gonna come and put an awning up. You're gonna take windows, replace your old doors with new storefront doors that you can actually see. And the great part about it, I mean, you could get those applications, you could even have a deadline to say, okay, every 3 months, maybe you wanna look at it. Maybe it's every 2 months, some deadline, and you'll say, okay, we'll take 5 applications. We may get some, we may get none. And then you could have your advisory board rank them, and then bring back, the top 3 or the top 5, and say, this is what we would like to do. I mean, I hope we have that much interest in it.
Sure.
Because really, every one of those dollars we spend, if it,
I think to me, the most important thing, and Jason just mentioned about the budget, that there is funding there, but I know that we want to make sure that we redevelop in the CRA, to the maximum that we can with whatever money we decide, as we discuss the levels up to that amount, because I know we're not going to use the entire budget, because we have infrastructure needs as well in those areas that we've got to leave money set aside for those bigger cost items.
right.
But I'm just thinking, that's one of the things we can talk about at the workshop. This is how much is going to go into
Yeah.
this amount, and hopefully, I think Randy told us that there's a certain dollar amount that he's anticipating every year, and take that. So just think we need to work, instead of just, we could sit here tonight, but I'd like to see the actual, suggestions of numbers from y'all. Y'all know more about what you're seeing every day than what I do. And then also maybe some budget numbers, suggestions in these categories, what makes sense.
So if I understand,
Lakeisha, I think we just need to look at other cities, what they spend.
so if I understand you correctly, you want another workshop, and I just have to apologize because I thought everybody was off on President's Day, and I made an announcement you all would meet on February 24th. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think we'll work on
So we're
presidents.
meeting on the 24th.
That's what I advertised, because I thought,
Advertisement.
yeah.
Is that okay
Oh,
with
okay,
everyone?
yeah, I mean, I thought, I'm
Okay.
sorry, so we're off, we don't have a meeting on the 17th.
No,
Okay,
ma'am,
sorry.
it's the 24th.
Okay.
Do a workshop.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to be the same day.
Right, the
Yeah,
seventh,
do
we
the
could do the
workshop
workshop
on
on the
the-
17th, that's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Yeah.
So you want the workshop in the morning, like we did last time at 10?
Can you do morning?
Oh, yeah. Mondays are great.
So it's the 17th, the workshop
Workshop at
10 a.m.?
They only got us off on Monday.
Best time to be off. Everybody else is working.
And then the
Also,
meeting-
we need to look at the advisory board. I think we need to select
Thank you.
and review and get that started.
So
We already have applications coming in, you said, right?
we have
I
one.
believe there's some people that are interested, yes, have been turning in some
I
applications.
think we have a CRA board member here
Yeah.
that might want
Well-
to chime in.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Well,
We abolished
He has
the
to-
CRA.
there you, well, yeah.
But when you talk
You're
about,
just a regular citizen, but you can
But you
speak.
can reapply.
I
but
spoke
when
to
we
her
talk
today.
about that, about a new committee, a new board, I know that with the recreation board, which was our latest one, each commissioner was able to select from the applications, you know, this is, you know, I'd like to appoint this person. It goes on the list of all, of the five, but
agree.
each of us, you know, say, this is who we would like to have on this board. I mean, it might be some of us have the same person, then we'd have to go, you know.
Yeah, but you
Have a
need to build
second
like your
choice.
top three or whatever.
Right.
So workshop, February 17th at 10 a.m. And at the workshop, you want the applicants for the advisory board? If they come,
Applications, that for we can,
Yeah, anyone that's applied,
so that we can review them, and then we'll have to make a decision on the 24th, I guess, because we can't make the decision at the workshop.
workshop,
Yeah.
unless we made it a workshop / special meeting, but that's
I know.
something.
and also different categories of the facade grant,
Okay, so
Yeah.
different applications.
categories of
Different
facade. And
categories.
But I do think that the application and the information you're trying to garner, and I think it's on the right path.
right,
Yeah.
So- Okay, so stay in that,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
I mean,
Decide amounts that you guys could just
Yeah.
I mean,
recommend.
just besides, even though checking the boxes, you've even got written descriptions, business, you know, daily business activities. So
And it's
you're
fillable.
covering it all, right?
PDF filler?
Billable.
Okay,
Okay.
any other discussion? on the CRA?
Hello, I'm Lisa Walker, a former CRA member.
But a community resident?
Yes, a community resident, and I do want to first and foremost thank you for the opportunity to be on the board. I've had a really great experience, and I do want to highlight that the Downtown Strategies that's partnered with the city hosted meetings every month via Zoom, and they've done an excellent job. I've attended every single one. I have a lot of records of what we've worked on. So I'm hoping in my reapplication that I can continue to work with you all. I do support setting the new stage for the board, because when we took on this initiative, well, since I've been on it the last 6 months, it has been a little whimsical in trying to figure out the navigation. And what I would share is I think it's important to get a creative, unified vision for how we want to see things within the budget. I do fully agree with getting ordinances set before establishing some of these projects, because they can be very large scale, very small scale. I was tasked to focus on the murals specifically. And I mean, we're talking murals up to 150 feet to just 20 feet. And at 20 feet, the quotes were coming in at 15,000. And the muralist, he came and visited town twice. And I did a whole tour with him. And he pointed out that some of the buildings, the paint the paint will have to be redone by the owner before a painting can be applied to it. So that's one big thing to, I don't know, do you guys have any questions for me?
I just want, you mentioned the ordinances, but we do have the CRA ordinance and we have the Main Street ordinance and.
No, I mean like getting something approved. Like if I were to present a mural to you, I think it should get approved from the city first before anyone just
Well,
goes
that'd
and
be the advisory
paints.
board. They'll come
Right.
in and present to the
So,
commission.
and so this is where I agree with setting a new stage with a whole new board and a whole new focus platform is to add, and I support this, adding more structure to this. So, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right.
And I think one thing that would be good when we do reorganize, and even for us as the CRA board, is have a training / presentation. And I would like the CRA advisory board to have a mission statement, and even the CRA, just to, because we can have a million ideas,
Yeah.
but for our city, we need to know the direction we want to go in. So I think a workshop / training session with someone that has a lot more experience than
Do
at
our,
least I do.
do our advisory boards have a chairperson who it's their responsibility to communicate?
Yes.
Primarily their responsibility, rather? Okay.
I do want them to take the sunshine course, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ethics.
Rules and
Because-
procedure.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll take any information on the League of Cities whenever
Okay,
you can.
got it. We'll talk about it this week.
Okay, any other questions or discussion on the CRA?
I know that it was mentioned,
The
It
city
just got
clerk will help you
approved,
with
so
that.
I'll send you one.
I know Lisa mentioned the retail strategies, and I know that, I think we've seen drafts on it, but Danny, can you make sure for the 17th that we have a copy of that
What's that? Mark?
retail
Okay.
strategies?
Retail strategy.
You can
Retail
please
strategies,
email me,
actual
and I'll send it to you.
document, report.
Keitha would probably have the
Probably,
most current.
Yeah,
Yeah.
met with her today.
Okay, we'll move on to city staff comments. City manager?
Well, Culver's is on their way. We actually improved their landscaping. I missed the TRC, one of many meetings I always miss. I did talk to the Rib City owner. She did tell me that Clewiston is #1 on their list. She's just trying to work a deal. So that's some pretty good information. And of course, we've got some apartments going in and a couple of 3 businesses, I think, Travis, at the Commerce Park.
Yeah, three new apartments and one new commercial building, possibly 2 at Commerce Park, so we're getting a lot of.
Hallelujah.
lot of
Yep.
traction out
Great.
there.
Yep.
Nice.
Answering a lot of questions.
Yep. So good news.
Yeah, good.
Moving along.
Looks like they've broke ground on the hotel.
Yes, they have.
That's a
which is good.
Radisson, right?
No.
Town
It's a
place.
Sheraton.
Yeah, I think so.
Was it
What's
Marriott family, maybe?
Marriott.
Marriott family?
Marriott.
Okay, I can't keep up.
Suites or something.
Town place suites. I
That's
think.
yeah,
Home-
downtown
homes to
suites.
suites.
Down
Home to
place.
suite.
Is not broken ground yet.
Right, that's the other one.
Well, wait, so, but out
That's
here,
beside the Hampton.
so what's this one out here?
This is a Marriott, and it has a similar side name. Town Place. Yeah.
Town place suites. is
And
what's-
So we just call it the Marriott.
Is it town place or
also
hometown?
Domino's
Home
is
place.
going to tear down the old pool building and build a new building. So they are moving there.
And what are they tearing down?
The old Snook pool building, they're going to move there, build a new building, so that's good. Plus 2 new pizza places coming to town. I would like to say, after the rec board meeting, one walked in and told me that it was a very good year for soccer. And I said, well, you know, I never got any complaints, and I've been here, I don't know, going on 12 years, and every year we got complaints. So they said, no, we just want to tell you guys that everything was improved, it went well, staff was great, so I was impressed.
Great.
Well, yeah, I coach soccer for the high school, and I called Tim a lot. Man, I need the goals here. I need goals out there. They mixed up our playing schedules. We got a team practicing here. man, anytime they drop, I mean, at the drop of a hat, he's like, I'll have the guys there in 10 minutes, and they showed up, and it was excellent,
Yeah,
man.
they did excellent
Which-
job.
It was a tough go last year.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, for sure.
Good news.
Yep. That's it for me.
City Attorney?
Nothing from legal, which I guess is good.
Right?
Yes,
That's
the commission
also
wants to
good
report
news.
on something.
Okay, well, good. Let's see, Commissioner Edmonds. Before you speak, any other staff want to say anything? Because y'all are here often, but I don't ever call on you. Are y'all good? Okay. All right, go ahead.
Interesting meeting tonight. I'm glad we got some things out in the air. Looking forward to our workshop again.
Okay, Commissioner Gardner?
You know, I'm also, you know, glad that, you know, that when concerns are brought forth and that we listen to the concerns and then we hear, you know, from the boots on the ground, so to speak, about what's actually happening. You know, it's good. It's what we're here for, and, you know, that we're responsible to the residents of this community for the stewardship of their funding. And one of the things that came up quite a bit tonight was that a lot of the issues that we're seeing are not within the city limits of Clewiston. And that is a big concern, and that's why I asked for the hours, because it sounds to me that we're spending a lot of time on the road and not actually at the shelter and right here, you know, in the area. And I realize that those issues are, the bigger issues are not within the city, but the time it's taking, from what I understood tonight, and the bigger overall picture of there's real big issues with animals not being properly taken care of outside the city and maybe even being dumped out there. I have no idea. But I think it's something that I'm glad that discussion was held tonight, and I look forward to the discussion during the budget process on this.
All right, Commissioner Williams?
I wouldn't be opposed to downsizing our animal control to just the city and the city alone and cutting the county out. So, I mean, if we can look into that and see how it can work out, maybe we can talk to the county and be like, listen, this is too much workload for us, too much square miles, whatever. Because, I mean, I've talked to a lot of the ACOs, and I talk to Tom, I mean, 2 or 3 times a week about what goes on out there. And he kind of entertained the idea of limiting down to just the city as well. So we've talked about it. Just, I don't have enough information of what that would do for the whole animal control thing. So, I mean, I'd like to get some more info on that and see where that would put our shelter, really.
Well, we'll work on getting the numbers, you know, which he said tonight, so we'll know better for Montour numbers.
Right.
So,
That it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Vice Mayor Heislow?
I also agree with the statements about looking at just servicing the actual city limits. Like Commissioner Williams said, we don't have all the information, but I know that staff will get it to us. I think my biggest concern is the rising budget.
yeah.
And, you know, until those rooftops are within the actual city, you know, I feel like it's inappropriate for us to ask the actual city taxpayers to continue to, you know, bear a burden that might not be theirs. I understand that the county does pay in. I get all of that. But pen to paper, I'm not sure that it's worth it, you know, anymore. I don't know. We don't have the space, and we certainly don't have the budget to renovate or do additions and, you know, things like that. So we're gonna have to make some tough decisions there. But aside from that, I thought, you know, having folks come to our meeting and air their concerns is healthy, you know, and I don't oppose that at all. It was a long night, but that's healthy dialogue, and but I appreciate very much the chief and his thorough presentation, and the way we can walk away, at least I can walk away this evening feeling confident that we are doing the right thing there.
100%.
Our team is handling it appropriately, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. Well done. Presentation was well done. And people are gonna, it's unfortunate that most of them were out of the city limits, and I think almost all but two were out of the county. So they got to air their concerns, and I think you answered every one of them appropriately, and I'm sure you did out there just now. So thank you for that. And I know everybody sitting up here has been to the shelter, and as you know, you can go anytime. Anyway, good job tonight on that.
And then it's open for anyone to go. I mean, not just us, but
And-
that invitation came from, it's open to everyone.
Yes.
If I can just have one more second. So that Facebook page was like sent to me a couple of weeks ago. I don't know the exact date, but whatever date it was, we had a meeting. We had a meeting here, and I left the house. It was sent to me. I left the house, went to animal control. They were closed. It was after 4:00. Phoned Danny. I think he was in a meeting. Phoned Tom. Said, I'd like for someone to come let me inside. Animal care and control. Sure. When do you want to go? No, I'm here. I'm in the parking lot. And here comes Tito within minutes, and I saw nothing like what was on display here today. And they certainly didn't know I was coming, But anyway, just.
Well, I mean, you exposed what it was, and I guarantee you, I can go to anyone's house sitting in here tonight and take a picture of your yard before it's mowed and you didn't get to it, and a pile of leaves, and put it on Facebook and say, why aren't they cited for cutting their grass? Okay, we can all look for the bad, but we need to toot our own horn once in a while. And I was talking to the chief earlier today, and periodically, not only animal control, but every department should be prepared to do a presentation, maybe not next month, and definitely not that long. But we need to have presentations for around 15 minutes, and toot our horn for what we are doing. I keep looking at Ashley, but Rec is doing some awesome things.
Telling you.
I mean, community services, all of you guys, administration here at the city hall.
And just
get
to
the
have the
word out. We
opportunity,
never say
yeah.
the good things we're doing, but a lot of, people like to point out the bad. So anyway,
That's a good
also
idea.
tomorrow night is the Chamber yearly annual dinner, so I know a lot of you guys are going to that. But with that, if no one has anything else?
Got to announce your coffee with the mayor,
Oh, when is it?
February 5th.
Yeah, February, we're going to start something and see how it works out. On February 5th at 9 a.m.,
Yeah.
we're going to do a coffee with the mayor. So
Right
it's
here.
open to the citizens. We have
here?
coffee with the chief. And we should have said the manager and the mayor.
It is
but
the
It
manager.
is, it's you and I.
It is the manager and the
Don't ask me
mayor.
the questions, and Danny will give the answers.
There you
It
go.
is.
Cut you out.
Where?
I can
In the
answer.
It's gonna be
chambers?
Here in the commission chambers.
Okay. That's
It'll be here.
So
Yes, sir.
We'll get it. You want
And that's on the 5th?
February 5th at 9 a.m. Coffee with the mayor and manager.
I'm going to say again, they cannot talk about their utility bill.
That's the only questions they bring in.
List of pre-approved topics.
Oh,
We don't have to do this.
okay. If there's nothing further, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Good job, guys.